Welcome to the Mom CEO podcast. I'm your host, Esther Roach. Join me as we explore the dynamic intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. From the challenges to the triumphs, we're here to unravel it all. Get ready for insightful conversations, practical wisdom, and a whole lot of inspiration. Let's embark on this empowering journey together. Hello and welcome to the Mom CEO podcast. I'm your host, Esther Roach, and today I'm joined by Kathryne. Hello, Kathryne, and welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, you're very welcome. Just for the benefit of our audience, please could you introduce yourself and what you do?
So I'm Kathryne Imabayashi. I'm a retired educator and a current entrepreneur and parent coach for parents raising boys. I'm Canadian by birth, but I live in Japan at the moment. I will be here till forever. This is where I've retired.
Oh, lovely. So is all your family there with you in Japan as well?
No, there's family still in Canada, but I married a Japanese man, and then my brother and his wife moved here, and last year my son and his new wife moved here. So
Oh,
I
wow.
have enough family here to be very content.
Oh, that sounds absolutely amazing. And you love it. How long have you been there for?
The first time I came, I was here for 19 years, and then we went out for 10, 12 years, and then we came back about 6 years ago. So it's close to, 25, 26 years in total.
Yeah, as long as you're enjoying it and loving it and have that freedom to be able to move, isn't it?
Yes, yes, exactly.
So, Kathy, with regards to your own background, I know you were in education and you did so much around your time within, education. Just give the audience a little bit of a background of, what you did and when you decided to change.
Well, actually, I didn't start in education. I was sure that what I wanted to do was social work, but there were some things that didn't pan out with that. And so I went into education as a backup, as a plan B. And I didn't plan on staying in it. And then I just fell in love with working with children and parents and the whole educational environment. So I started in Canada. I moved across from the East Coast to the West Coast. I worked in daycare and public schools. From the West Coast, I was getting close to 30, had maybe a little midlife crisis, and read a book and got on a plane 3 months later and relocated to Japan with nothing more than uh, a feeling about it being what I was supposed to be doing. So I worked here in Japan for 19 years. 12 of those was in the international school, mostly with early childhood and lower elementary, but some upper elementary as well. In somewhere in the middle part there, I left uh, when our son was 3 years old. The school environment wasn't a good environment, a healthy environment at that time.
Mm.
And so I left along with 90% of the staff, and I started up my own school because I knew that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to work with children. So eventually I convinced my husband to join me for the business part of it, and we worked together in that for 7 years. When our son was finished elementary school, I made the decision. My husband was very supportive in that anything connected with education, he left to me. So I made the decision that the school environment, that we had been in was perfect for that stage of development, but our son needed something bigger. And so we decided to go international. And that meant that we went on my career. My husband didn't speak English, so job opportunities were not going to be open for him. And that was a conscious choice because I really wanted the luxury, because I do think it's a luxury when a parent can stay at home, however you make it work, but
Yeah.
it's a luxury. And so I was really excited that one parent would be able to be at home while our son was going through the middle and high school years, because those are tough years. So we went to Beirut, to Lebanon, for his middle school and high school.
Wow.
I worked in early years initially, and then there was the Israeli war, but we went back after that, and I went into middle school for 3 years because I wanted a change. When our son graduated from high school, then I decided I was ready to move into an administrative role in education. So the first job, and that was to kind of deal with the empty nest thing. It was very difficult to put on that brave face. So the first position, I took a coordination job in Bangkok, working with toddlers, 3 and 3-year-olds in a Reggio Emilia school. So we stayed there for 2 years, and that was a beautiful experience. And I loved the administrative role. Then we went to Tbilisi, Georgia, and I was the principal of early years and elementary, but mostly they hired me to build up their elementary early years section. So we stayed there for a year, and then we went to Doha, to Qatar for a year, started up preschool and international preschool. And then we returned to Japan, spent 3 years in Tokyo, again, starting up a international preschool. And then 2 years in Hiroshima, and that was as a vice principal in elementary. And then finally, we came to Itoshima, and which is where kind of the area that I started in, and retired. When I retired, teaching does not provide for international teaching, I should say, doesn't really provide well as far as pensions and that kind of thing. And so I knew I wasn't going to be sitting back doing nothing. And I thought about a few things to just bring in some income, and nothing felt right. It's like, at this stage in my life, I can only be doing things I'm passionate about. It has to, so I started up a business, and it's been 27 years now that I have been full feet into understanding the inner emotional world of boys and trying to make the world that our boys and our males are living in better. And so I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. Now I have the luxury of having time where I can concentrate it on exactly what I want. And exactly what I want is working mostly with moms, but sometimes with dads as well, with moms who are raising boys who just need some support. So that's a long version, I guess, of what my life is.
You've had quite an amazing career, though, and it's obviously, one of the things you mentioned that I picked up is the fact that you developed this passion and you had the passion to do it. And I think for anybody who's listening, if you're going to start something, you've got to have enough passion to actually see it through and carry it through. But one of the things I want to find out is, your coaching business is called Sonhood. And I wanted to find out what motivated you, why focus on the boys.
There was a particular incident. So I grew up there were 5 girls and 1 boy. So not so dissimilar from your current situation.
Yeah.
So I knew quite a lot about girls. Like we had that down pat. I also grew up in the 60s and 70s. So that was the women's liberation movement. So I grew up in a time when women were becoming empowered. And so I kind of had that down pat. And then I was what they call a mature mom, which means I was getting close to 40 when our son was born, because I wasn't having children. I'd made that strong, independent woman's decision. And what happened was that when he was born, I thought, this is going to, I've had a really good run so far in life. I've had great adventures. I thought, this is just going to be fun. I've worked with children for 10, 15 years to this point, more than 10 years. So I thought, okay, I have something that will give me some confidence, and this is going to be good. And for the first 3 years, like, there were the normal challenges that any new mom has, but still it was, I still thought I had a handle on things. Then when he was somewhere between 3 and 4, something happened, and that was that one incident. So that's when that phrase, "you don't know what you don't know," that's when it really hit me.
Yeah.
And I had taken our little guy fishing on a Saturday morning. He wanted to go fishing, and his dad was working. So we went down this little path in the woods, not so deep in the woods, and there was a little creek there. It was very beautiful, and we were in Japan, so I thought, I was not worried about safety whatsoever. And maybe that was naive, being anyway, but I wasn't fearful at all. It was a beautiful place. It was a beautiful day. So my 3-year-old and I go down with him with his little plastic fishing rod, and we're going to have a fun morning.
Mm.
After we'd been there for a bit, I saw a movement coming down the path, and I turned and I looked up, and I saw what in my mind I categorized as a gang of boys, a gang of young boys coming down that path. And there was something so instinctive and so guttural that happened, and it was absolute fear. There's a gang coming down, a gang of guys coming down. How am I going to protect my little guy and myself? And it was just pure, raw fear.
Mm.
So these kids come down, and as they get closer, I recognize, oh, this is the same age group of kids that I worked with all year.
Mm.
This is the group of boys that just finished their last year in elementary, moving into middle school. They've had a huge growth spurt. Um, but inside there, it's still very little boys with, there was nothing for me to be afraid of. And more than anyone else, because that was the age group I was working with, I should have known not to react in that way. Anyway, the day went fine. They joined us, and we had a great time together. Lovely boys.
Mm.
And that could have been it. But I'm very analytical. So I never let anything go until it makes sense to me.
Mm.
And that night I was trying to figure out, I couldn't grasp anything logical. Like, why was that my reaction? I thought I didn't put stereotypes to gender, or
Mm.
I hadn't had experiences that would have provoked that kind of a reaction. I could not get a handle on where this was coming from.
Mm.
And then I had an image, and that image was, is it possible that in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, my little guy is going to be walking down a path with his buddies to go fishing, and there's going to be a woman below who has that same
Mm.
intense reaction simply because he's a boy. And
Mm.
it was something, there's something wrong with this picture. And so that's how it all started. And there wasn't as much material then as there is now. But I grabbed anything I could, and I have continued to kind of be immersed in that world for the last 27 years.
Oh wow. That's just it's such a it's something common really, because I think you do see that a lot. And
Yeah.
it's interesting that you mention about, obviously with the whole stereotyping, and when you see a group of lads, it can be quite daunting and stuff. And it's something that I see, you see it everywhere you go. And it's not just you having that experience with your 3-year-old son at the time, but it's how do you help parents to kind of like understand that sort of stuff, and the needs of boys basically? How do you help them with that?
It's the toughest part of my job to have people understand that there are things that they just don't know. And
Mm.
until they are aware nothing will change. And the things that they're not aware of are impacting how they are parenting their little boy. So it's like in the book, in the courses, I have, and that's one of the first things I try to do. And when I do parent workshops, and like one of the ones that is one of the easier ones to do is there was an experiment done. And so I will show the first picture, which is a portrait of a toddler. And the toddler is dressed in typical female clothes. And you ask a few questions to each individual, each adult separately. And you ask, well, what do you think that child's name might be? What do you think they might like to do with their hobbies? What do you think their character might be like? What do you think they might do in the future as an adult? And so there were, 5 or 6 parents that were asked that question, and then individually. And then they were shown a second portrait, and it was a toddler, but typically in male clothes. And they asked the same questions: the name, the character, the hobbies, the future career plans. And when all there was, I don't know, 5 or 6 adults that were part of this experiment. And when it was over, they pulled them all together and they showed the 2 portraits together. And they asked them to think of their reaction, their answer to those questions. And then they said, it's the same child. So it's kind of like the reactions we have, even though we're not thinking it, it's unconscious. But we are making these assumptions about what they should be like, how they should behave, what we will allow as, being okay and not okay. And that set of conduct, the social rules, that's what is harming young boys the most. So when parents are aware of it and aware of other gender differences, they parent differently. That makes a difference.
Wow. It's interesting with obviously what you have in the book and everything. And, at the end of the show, I will ask you to let us know where people can find you if they want to get a bit more into that side of things and just have a bit more of an understanding. But one of the things I wanted to, follow on from is you've obviously mentioned the thing about boys and their surrounding, but it's also the importance of that smooth home life for boys. And I just wanted you to touch on that and sort of expand a little bit on how that works, for parents and for the child.
The reason I do what I do is because I think it is the most important part of a child's life is the parents and the home environment. So when a parent understands the challenges that society places on little boys, that's where it starts. But in general, with boys, when they understand some of the differences and challenges that our boys have, and can talk about it, can communicate in a way that is receptive to males. Like there are so many small easy things that we can change when we're aware. So when the home environment is that safe space where that boy can be everything that he really is, and where he knows that his parents get him, they understand the challenges he is feeling when he is walking down the street and gets that reaction from a woman. They're on the same team. And even though as parents, we can't control what's going on in the schools, in society, in their outside world, when we can provide that kind of safe space at home, a respectful, kind of compassionate area, that makes the difference in whether that boy how it makes a difference on how they handle all of those challenges. And it truly that's what makes the difference. So I'm not naive thinking that I can change the world, because you can't. But I can explain to a parent so they can explain to their son so that together they can get on the same page and they can make it a little bit better because home is better.
Yeah. So, with all that said, I'm picking up obviously the importance of having that communication. And I think, that applies to females as well. But it's also providing that foundation, where you can communicate and openly without the child having the fear. And like you said, you can't change everybody. And children are, there's no manual to say this is what will happen, but it certainly helps to equip them and prepare them basically for life, for the future. And that's what I'm picking from what you've just said. Is that
But
correct?
it is,
Yeah.
but one of the pitfalls, because I believe that all parents do the very best they can because we love our children, so we want to do the best. We do the best with what we've got and what we understand at that time.
Mm.
But I think the biggest issue that we get stuck on, especially moms, like I'm talking mostly about moms, is that we communicate with our male children the same way we communicate with our female children.
Mm.
We don't make those differences. And so that often inhibits the kind of communication that you really want to have with your son.
Mm.
So that's part of it. We try and we try and we try. We don't understand why our boys aren't talking to us, that we just get the grunts and the groans. And um, we're not getting it because we're doing the best we can. And we can see that is effective with other females.
Mm.
And so it's that awareness that there is a difference and then respecting that difference. And then the communication just becomes better.
Wow, that's such powerful sort of words and things to actually consider, because like you said, like I'm a mum of five, I've got one son and I have four daughters, but my own upbringing was the same. My mother had four girls and one boy who was the youngest.
Okay.
So it's almost like he was the baby of the house, and it's slightly different, whereas my son is the oldest. He's not the youngest in the house, so it's like the other way around. And it's channeling in and seeing the differences that I have, I suppose, which kind of helps you to navigate the way along as along and everything. So yeah, no, that's so on point with things that happen basically that you see happening, and how or where mums can actually struggle when it comes to obviously that communication aspect. So with the regards to you obviously started a business. You've started loads of things. I just want to pick on how you navigated those things. What were sort of the challenges that you came across? You've also mentioned that obviously you had your son a little bit later on in life, and did that have an impact at all with your career, starting your business and running your own business and those kind of things?
For myself, excuse me, for myself, I think it did. I don't think I could have been the same. I would not have been the same kind of parent had I started having children younger. But by the time I had a child, I had really lived a lot, and I was ready for this stage. So I kind of put both feet in there. So as far as the career choices, especially when he was younger, it was, I think, because for me there at the beginning there was never any choice about not being a working mom. It was like in our situation we needed to have two incomes because neither income were high. We needed two incomes to be able just to have a normal lifestyle where we weren't concerned about paying the bills and that kind of thing. So it was never a question about, am I going to work? But there was also something inside of me that knew, like, I love kids, but I know I am a better mom um, when I'm working. I'm a better mom when I'm working, because when I'm not working, then I'm full on as a mom. I love my son forever and all the time, but I'm actually better on those holidays and weekends. And being a teacher, it gave us all the same holidays and weekends. So we had a good life.
Yeah.
And I will say my husband was a huge supportive part of our world. And we had fun. Like we had challenges, but we had fun as a team, kind of, getting through it all. And I honestly believe, even now, like with this stage, going through this part and starting up a business after retiring, that was more challenging than doing it when our son was, young,
Mm.
because I was at a stage where I'm adult. I have the understanding and the expertise and the education that go with what I'm doing. But to start up a business, I was like, I have to have a website. I have to understand how to do social media. All these business things that were not part of my world and intentionally not in part of my world. But the beautiful thing about that was that as an adult child, my son jumped on board and helped me learn and supported me like with the website and things. So I think if you're doing something, whatever it is,
Mm.
if you know why you're doing it,
Mm.
if it's something you're passionate about it, and also I think if it's of service to people, if it's going to make the world a better place, then you get that energy, you get that drive, you get what you need to be able to do what you need to do.
Oh, fantastic. So what's next for you? What kind of things have you got in the pipeline with Sonhood Coaching at the moment?
Well, I've spent the last 3 years putting all my ducks in place. And so it's been a bit of a whirlwind for these 3 years. In March, the beginning of April, I finally published the first parenting book. So at this point, I just want to really focus on getting the word out.
Mhm.
Even like my my happy place is coaching parents.
Yeah.
So the more people who understand that there is this kind of support available, that have a place to go when they need it, then the better. So from this point on, it's trying to share with people this is an issue and
Mm.
this is hard. People's homes are not as joyful and smooth as they could be raising boys if they knew this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I hope. Even if someone doesn't need to work with me, then I hope, oh, they'll go check out the website or they'll read the book or
Mm.
they'll, take one of the freebies and just get curious about what's there, what you don't know yet, but that is impacting your parenting. That's what I hope. I don't have I've got big plans. I plan another book. I want to start writing children's book, but the main thing is I want to be helping, especially moms. I want to be helping moms.
And where can they find you?
The website is the best place. It's called Sonhood, SON, sonhoodcoaching.com. Everything is there. The book is there. My social media links are there. I'm most active on LinkedIn and Instagram. Um, yeah, that's the easiest place to get all my information.
No, that's absolutely fantastic. It's been a real pleasure having you, Kathy, and you've shared some things that I'm obviously going to think about, but I think the audience will pick them up and think about them as well. And what I'll do is when the episode goes live, we'll put your contact links within the episode so that people know where to find you and connect with you. And I know you're going to do great things because there is a lot of mums with boys, with sons in the world. So it's incredible. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having the conversation with me. I really appreciate it.
No, you're very welcome.